I made some fun dyed tissue papers the other day, and I thought I would show you how I did that. I've done some different dyed tissues before, but I don't think I've shown this actual process before. If I have, you're going to see it again. I don't know. I can't keep up. What you're going to need is a plastic tub that's maybe specifically for this purpose, because it's going to get messy. You're going to need some dyes or inks or sprays to use. I've got some homemade sprays, some store-bought, some Delusions, some glimmer mists, just as long as they're a water base, kind of watercolorish. You know, you don't want anything with an acrylic base to it because it will cause your papers to stick together. But if it's like a liquid spray ink, glimmer mist, watercolor, it'll do fine. I even have some Rit dye that I mixed up in a sunshine orange color. So we'll see what that does. You're going to need some tissue papers, and I've got a stack here. These are sort of just off-white tissue. This is cheap, like gift wrap tissue is all that is. And then you're going to want to wear some gloves. And really what I did for the other ones, I just like you see here, I just put the stack in here. I just put the inks and stuff on it and then let them dry. And that's it. After they're dry, if you want some more interesting patterns, you can do kind of like I did here and spray or drop some water onto it if you're using water-based inks. If you're using like a permanent inks, you would want to use alcohol instead of water. But that will kind of give you some like splotchy areas, and then I also dropped on some more color after these were dry. But see, it makes the cool kind of splotchies, which I like. I've done this before in another video. I'll try to find that and put a link to it. And this, I just kind of sprayed some water on it, so it made like really small splotchies. So yeah, and some of these had stuff stamped on them. They were some Happy Mail, and there were some rubber stamped images and words on some of them. And I thought, I wonder if, you know, what would happen if I dyed them. Would it still show? And they did on some. It's actually kind of really cool. So let's just go in here and I'll show you what I did. Color, yeah, doesn't really matter. Didn't pay much attention. And you can either, you know, like legit spray these on or just open the bottle and pour it. And I just kind of, you know, go through like this a few at a time. You don't have to go like between each one because they're going to bleed. But yeah, do like that with all your colors. And that doesn't have very much in it. Let's spray. Some of these don't even spray anymore. They're, you know, clogged up or whatever. So I'm just gonna do like this. Oh, trying not to make a royal mess. And yeah, so much for that. I think there's still some more goodness left in there. Let's just see if I can get a little more out of it. Yeah. Okay. Oh, what else? This says Coral Pink Mix. This means that I've taken some, well, that hardly shows up. I've taken several colors that were similar and just dumped them in the same bottle. I really don't worry too much about making mud, because if they do get muddy, then at the end you can just, you know, like spray some of this water on there and it bleeds them out interestingly, and kind of the mud just goes away. You just have to trust me on that, it does. I've got way too many reds. That looks like a blue. And this has a dropper top. Huh. Oh, okay. Just keep going with this until, you know, you get tired of it or you've used up all your colors. I may add some water so that the colors will bleed more. Okay, now once you get them all painty, and like these are super painty and wet, you can let this dry just like it is, or if you have room you can spread these out in you know, somewhere and let them dry individually so that they dry a little bit faster. I happen to have the room to do that, so that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna spread these out and hopefully they'll dry pretty quick so that we can see the results faster. Be back. So I took the tissues out of my garage and started laying them out to dry, just like I did these. You know, they were all wet in a single blob, and then I just peeled them one by one and laid them out and let them dry, and I expected I was going to do the same thing with this stack, and that didn't exactly happen. I learned a valuable lesson. In fact, I nearly scrapped this video and started over to do a different one so that I could show you a full success story. Not that this was a complete fail, but I did learn some things that I think will be helpful. So I decided to go with it and show you what I learned. Not all tissue is the same, and I didn't realize it as I was working with it. You know, I mean, it was tissue. This is tissue, this is tissue. It just felt like tissue to me. Clearly, this tissue was quite different from this tissue, because when I was separating these, this is the one that tore. I tore one, and that was it. When I was separating these, they were all tearing, and I had to stop and quit separating because I was just going to have shreds if I kept going. You can see that this tissue, it was just quite a bit more delicate than the other. And like I said, this was just cheap gift wrap tissue, and maybe that other one was too, but they were different levels of cheap. Because this was seriously hard to handle. I could not separate these while they were wet without shredding them. So what I had to do, I was able to separate them in wads of, you know, maybe 6 or 7 sheets, and then just lay them out. And as they dried, I could peel the 6 or 7 into 2 stacks of 3 or 4. And, you know, I just kept doing that. So I didn't get that instant gratification like I got with the others, but still it worked. And the dyeing part, as far as the way they turned out, you know, that part was awesome. No complaints there. I just had a hard time with the tearing because of this tissue. So, that being said, I don't think you necessarily have to use like a high quality art tissue. Is that even a thing? I don't even know. But I don't think that, you have to necessarily seek out heavy duty tissue. You do just have to be aware that depending on the tissue you use, you might have to let your stack dry in just one big stack. Dry slowly in one big stack, and then just kind of do the separating as it starts to dry, rather than laying them all out individually like I did. So, lesson learned. And this really doesn't affect usability for me, because 99% of the time I tear these anyway and use them in sort of like a decoupage fashion. Now, if you're wanting to use it in a single sheet for something, then this is going to be an issue for you. But just for, mixed media, a piece of something pretty, these are fine. And the patterns and colors that I ended up with are just beautiful, and it's just from pretty much randomly selected sprays. I had some red, some blue, the orange RIT dye, and some of these picked up some of the pearly white color that I did on the last batch. I didn't add any of that ink to this batch, but it was in my tub. So I got it. See, this one had a lot of it. It must have been on the bottom or something. But look at the patterns. Oh my gosh, they're just beautiful. It's almost like a tie-dyed with literally no effort. And some of them you get more intense colors and patterns. Now when these are wet, they're going to look really dark and almost murky. And don't panic, because they lighten up significantly when they dry. And I did put these in my heat press just to kind of speed the drying, and so that they're smooth so you could see the cool patterns. But you don't have to iron your papers. That's just a weird thing that I do. So anyway, this is a good way to use up tissue papers. And if it has some kind of a pattern printed on it, or like my other one, something stamped on it, that's okay. Use it. I think as long as you have a predominantly light colored background, because you do want the inks to show up, I think they'll work fine. If you've got some liquid watercolors or spray inks, mists that you want to use up, maybe there's just a little bit left in the bottles, add some water to make more, and then just pour it on these like I did. Super simple. And really, I think, stunning results. And you can do a ton at a time. So you've got enough to do, a big project, several projects, enough to give away in Happy Mail or to put in your Etsy shop or whatever. So, there is another way to dye some tissue papers, and what to watch out for. Thin tissues, you got to be careful. I think that's all I have for today. The end.